Oh, no, I'm gonna enjoy this one. I've got notes. From Zero is the first studio album from legendary NuMetal / rock / alternative band since the tragic death of Chester Bennington. I'll start by addressing the Emily in the room. New vocalist, who dis? As I discussed in my reaction video for The Emptiness Machine, I think she's a great fit for the kind of ever-evolving sound of Linkin Park. She is obviously an incredible vocalist, and I think she handles heavy vocals at times better than Chester did in his later years. I like that they went with a vocalist that clearly isn't trying to emulate or replace what Chester did. She's bringing her own flavor to it, and the new songs really speak to that. I had a lot of conversations with people about Linkin Park, past and present. I found that they have not had a consistent sound in their discography from album to album, and that's one of the things I personally love about Linkin Park, is that it's ever-evolving. I saw a lot of people mention in the comment section of that reaction video that they had not really listened to Linkin Park since Meteora or Hybrid Theory. And I really think that this album kind of brings back some of that edge that people might have been missing in some of the later albums. I think this album serves as a good entry point to Linkin Park, as well as reassuring older fans that if you liked something in the first 17 years of Linkin Park, what I will now call the Chester era of Linkin Park, there will be something for you in the new era. As the name suggests, From Zero is this new start for Linkin Park. It kind of feels like it's trying to have its cake and eat it too, because it's trying to also enjoy all the things we love about Linkin Park, and I think it straddles that line pretty well. I'll be discussing some of the potential problems I think the album might have for some listeners, but I honestly think it's a good first punch for this new era of Linkin Park. I get the impression that the band, Mike Shinoda in particular, if you look at interviews and discussions they've had about the lineup, knew that they were going to be fighting a bit of an uphill battle with certain fans, but they came onto the teeth with some songs that, in my opinion, do reach the heights of In the End, What I've Done, and songs of that ilk. At 10 songs, 11 songs if you count the intro, it doesn't feel very bloated, it feels very trim, it doesn't feel like there's any filler. I would be interested to know, were there songs that didn't make the cut? I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a deluxe edition down the line that maybe has some bonus tracks. It really feels slimlined. All the songs feel intentional. Those who know me know I love an album that feels like it was written to be an album. It definitely doesn't just feel like a bunch of singles stuck together. It does play as one big listening experience. I feel the album flows from song to song very well. There are these really nice production choices that literally ramp up from one song to the next, which is something I haven't heard people do in a while, because the industry goal a lot of the time has been to make great singles, and then maybe later we'll compile those into an album. So this does feel like they went, we are making an album. That being said, it does jump around in style a lot, enough that I think that'll put some listeners off. There are people who will enjoy, I think, maybe 70% of this album, and 1 or 2 songs will just not hit for them. And the opposite is also true. I think there will be people who love maybe 1 or 2 of the singles and can skip the rest. I'm reminded of the discussions I've had with people who say, oh no, I only really enjoy early Linkin Park, the heavy stuff from like the early 2000s, the NuMetal stuff. There are songs in this album that get there for me. It really feels like a kind of a throwback to a very specific era of harder rock and nu metal, but then there are songs that are very modern and very light, and it does feel like this album can have its legs in 2 camps a bit. Again, that's something I love about Linkin Park, but I know that there are listeners who like a consistent sound out of an album. One of the songs, Over Each Other, is this beautiful rock ballad that has a great place in the album, and it's a highlight for me. I think there are people who will love that song, and then it goes over to songs like I Gave You Everything I Had, and especially Casualty. It is balls to the wall, punch you in the face, early 2000s nu metal. Again, I think that's part of the charm of this album. It tickles all my fancies. It kind of goes to all the extremes that I enjoy in this genre. And like I said, I do think the album straddles that line pretty well. It doesn't feel like just a compilation of songs. It does feel like they intentionally go, here is a lighter, almost pop rock song. Here is a heavy nu metal song. And this was an intentional choice to put these next to each other. I was scared that this album would try and pander to me as an original Linkin Park fan. It really doesn't feel that way. It feels like an honest go at an album where every song is a different exploration of the human experience. It really feels like everyone enjoyed working on this and cared about making this album. Just because it doesn't pander to all their fans doesn't mean it's not heavy. It goes very heavy. Heavier than I've heard Linkin Park. I would say for the last 3 albums they released, I have not heard this particular kind of heavy in a while. It is dripping with NuMetal angst in both the production and the lyrics. Loads of NuMetal vibes. The production in particular feels so raw in some of the heavier songs. It's a production style that I've not heard in the last 10 years. They could have very easily gone the Architects, Spirit Boxy, super polished, quantized everything sound, and I'm really glad they didn't. This honestly feels unique amongst all of the music that's released this year. We have had some real good bangers. I say this a lot. We are eating well as fans of heavy music. It does end up standing out because it doesn't have that same, like I said, ultra quantized feel. The drums in particularly feel very lively. For all its jumping around in tone, it still feels authentically Linkin Park, both in what it keeps from the existing discography, but also in where it innovates and where it kind of pushes new boundaries for the band. If you've come this far, I think it's honestly worth giving it a spin. I give it a hard recommendation. Like I said, I think there is something here for every kind of fan, not just of Linkin Park, but every kind of fan of heavier music. I want to get into the songs. A couple of thoughts I have on the intro. Let's bring back intro tracks to albums. It's definitely a trend I'm happy to see come back. It immediately puts me back in the shoes of young emo Peter, who's not allowed to grow out his hair, listening to Breaking Benjamin and having these short, and this one's like under a minute long, that just set the tone for the album. Awesome. It immediately introduces a quirk of this album that reoccurs from time to time. These little clips or recordings of Mike and Emily discussing stuff like throughout the production. Love it. The real opener of the album, The Emptiness Machine, killer. And I mean this, killer song, as well as being the first single they released. Killer! Again, you can go watch my reaction. I think it's a really, really strong track. I mentioned this in my reaction. I think they knew exactly what they were doing, starting off and having the whole first verse and first chorus be just Mike. I think it kind of, if you're a fan who was skeptical about having a new vocalist in Linkin Park, it kind of lulls you. It's like, I'm here. Okay, cool, Mike. Maybe the band will just be Mike-led now. And it kind of lulls you into kind of, okay, this is still Linkin Park. And then introduces Emily in a really cool way. Something I didn't hear on my first listen, you can hear Emily's voice creep in the chorus in like a really reverby production layer in the background. It's really cool. Go listen for that. I got chills as I thought about that. It's little touches like those, like that reverb-drenched vocal. It's little touches like that in the production that really bring me back to this album. When I do these reviews, I listen to the album a bunch of times, and usually by the 5th or 6th time, I kind of got it. By the time I was listening for the 5th, 6th time, I was still hearing little new things that I enjoy, and Mike Shinoda is the sole producer on this album, and I think there's a lot of creative production work, outside of just what the band is bringing to the table. There's a lot of subtle production things that's why I love this album. Emptiness Machine is definitely aiming for the minutes to midnight era of Linkin Park, if I can put it that way. Feels at home in a Michael Bay Optimus Prime monologue. I think somebody literally made an edit of the end of Transformers with Emptiness Machine over it. Pretty light, not too heavy, but not heavy, especially in the second half. I think it's a great introduction to the new lineup. Cut the Bridge is up next. It really feels like it could be in a Tony Hawk, like PlayStation 2 video game soundtrack. It's a very punk rock song. Has one of the best chorus melodies on the album, really strong. Has a lot of edgy lyrics that I can imagine in the back of art class with my fringe down, writing on my notepad. Nobody gets me. Very punk rock. I love it. Heavy as the Crown is also a tie-in with the video game franchise League of Legends, which I will admit, I'm not a big fan of League of Legends. I am a massive fan of the fact that they keep working with great bands and cool, like good musicians to cross-promote and market. I think there are people who might not have known about Linkin Park if not for League of Legends being involved with one of the songs. To the point of the official music video for this song, which was, I believe, the second single they released, not being on the Linkin Park channel, but being on the League of Legends YouTube channel. Linkin Park has always been known to kind of throw their music to soundtracks. One of my favorite Linkin Park songs, Castle of Glass, was in the Battlefield, one of the Battlefield soundtracks. So for me, as a fan of both rock music and video games, this felt, this is classic Linkin Park. I adore the sampled sound to the strings, like it's been sampled off a tape recorder or a small speaker or something, and the band kicking in. That might be from the League of Legends soundtrack. Maybe fans can tell me, I have no idea. It feels really at home with songs like What I've Done, and in the end, it sits in that spot. It goes really heavy in the bridge for a song that's been chosen to cross-promote with a video game that's fairly popular outside of the metal sphere. So that's really cool. I will be saying this a lot. I think Linkin Park has always and will continue to be a lot of people's introduction into heavier music. And this song in particular, it nails that. It features a really long scream over the bridge that really illuminates that Emily can carry her weight not just as a great vocalist or a great rock vocalist, but a great metal vocalist. I do think it's a highlight of the album, and I think this one in particular will be some people's favorite song of the album. It does feel very well-rounded from a production standpoint. So if you enjoy a lot of kind of older Linkin Park that goes pretty hard near the end, this will be your favorite song on the album. Over Each Other is the first song to feature Emily's vocal as the lead vocal all the way through. I believe Mike is doing some backing vocals throughout the song, but for the most part, this is an Emily-led song. It's on the lighter side of the album, and it comes at a good time. We've just gone to reach high octane, heavy as the crown, and we start settling down a little for this song. If you're into the One More Light era of Linkin Park, or just lighter rock music, this one's going to be your favorite. The lyrics pair really nicely with the released music video. I keep saying this, but it is a highlight. I like the lighter songs on heavy albums. I've said this before. Often the songs that go hardest from heavy bands are the ones where they kind of calm down. I think this one is a really strong contender for the most well-rounded production. If you listen to the album in one sitting, this song ends with Mike saying, "You got it," and the next song starts with well, okay, cool, put your screaming pants on, and then immediately just punches you in the face. Casualty might be one of the most intense, hardcore punk songs I think has been released in the last 10 years. It's a genre that doesn't get a lot of play. There's a lot of heavy music releasing, but this specific flavor of, I wouldn't say heavy, I would say raw, aggressive sounding guitars, thrashy sounding drums. I've not heard a song released like this in a good long while. Casualty appeals to kind of the extreme bits of my taste, where I didn't really think I had favorite songs, but it reminded me of some of those late 90s grunge songs that I do enjoy. It feels almost unpolished in a very intentional way. It takes me to a smoky bar with people smashing into each other, or a really dingy garage with a band just having fun after school, and one of their parents will knock on hey, quit it with that racket. It really feels like those sensibilities have come back and hit me in the face. I think this one will be divisive for some people. It is very different from some of the stuff they've released in the past, and it does kind of stand out in the album a little bit. It does feel like they're having tons of fun, and it literally ends with an unironic record scratch transition to the next song. It almost feels like they're saying, we do this, and we've intentionally placed it next to this other thing we do that is almost nothing like it. It really showcases the versatility of bands like this. Bring back bands allowing themselves to make different styles of music on one album. I bring this up a lot. What made the Beatles great is not just the radio-friendly hits, it's having the weird stuff in between. Overflow, like I said, very different song. It feels very 21 Pilots, and I don't know if it's an intentional, if that is a reference that they felt. I have felt that 21 Pilots has been influenced by Linkin Park, so this almost feels like it's coming back around. It feels very 21 Pilots. Feel free to tell me in the comments if there's some connection I'm missing. It just has a lot of that kind of vibe, loads of cool production, loads of cool vocal layers. The flow that Mike Shinoda raps in on this song feels like it could be at home as a feature on a 21 Pilots song. So it's in a cool place in the album. It's almost bringing us back to the vibe established by Emptiness Machine that we've kind of gone back and forth from in different times of the album, so this almost recenters us. A lot of these songs start out very chill and get progressively heavier, which I find interesting, because according to a lot of people, that's kind of the opposite of what Linkin Park did throughout their discography. They started out pretty heavy, super grungy, nu metal, and became popular as time goes on. Is that an intentional choice to kind of subvert that claim? Two-Faced is the third single they released, and it's definitely the most nu metal of the three singles. I definitely feel like they released this one so that if people felt, oh, is this album going to be a little popular, those who were only going to listen to the singles could at least have one who was like, no, we're going to go a little heavier here. If you're one of those guys who stopped listening after Hybrid Theory, this might be the one for you. The video feels very 2000s rap metal with like, there's literally like record scratchy breakdown. It's very classic nu metal. A really thick riff. It feels 3 Days Grace meets Limp Bizkit in places. Leading us into Stained, I know I've said there are a lot of highlights in this album, but I think Stained might be my very favorite of the album. Very modern production on this one, but the chorus is the strongest melody of the album. It just solid, well-written melody, beautiful lyrics. A theme this album has been dealing with a lot is dealing with repercussions of choices you've made, and this one, that's very on the forefront for this song. I Gave You Everything I Had, or IGYEIH. I understand why they did that. It's one of the heavier songs on the album, while still maybe being the most classic Linkin Park song. A really melodic chorus with like lyrics that's just like, how dare you. The fact that the song ends with "From now on, I don't need you," repeated, I don't know, maybe 20 times, with progressively like more aggressive screams from Emily. It's one of the most real moments in the album. It really puts you in the shoes of someone who's trying to say to someone else, from now on, I don't need you, and it just doesn't sink into either you or the other person. It is shockingly real. It seamlessly transitions into what must be one of my top 5 closers for an album in the last 10 years. I've said this a lot, your last song is such an important choice if you want your album to be listened to as one cohesive piece of art. Good Things Go deals with loss in a very beautiful way. I always like it when an album tones it down for the last song, and it does that without losing intensity. No matter what kind of music you like, whether or not you're a fan of Linkin Park or not, this song will appeal to most music enjoyers. It ends with this like vocal pad thing that literally ramps up back into track 1. So if you're listening to the album on repeat, it literally goes back to track 0. I think it's really clever. This album deals with a lot of cyclical themes, the repeating cycles of abuse and social issues, acceptance and loss, and dealing with different parts of the human experience in different seasons. Trying so hard and getting so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. And it looping back and having to start from 0, I think that is beautiful. In closing, I think it's a really strong album that has me excited for what's to come in the future of this band. It took me back to listening to early Linkin Park albums on my very first MP3 and illegally sharing music with my friends at school. I think it's an excellent first heavy album, the way Minutes to Midnight was for me and a lot of other listeners my age. There are young musicians who will pick up a guitar for the first time because of songs on this album, and that's awesome. It might be my album of the year for how good it captures everything I love about rock and metal and heavy music in general. If you're still on the fence, definitely check out the singles, Stained and Good Things Go, but do not sleep on this album. Thank you so much for watching. It has gotten very dark. Like I've said a lot, I think we are eating so well as fans of heavy music. Architects released a new song that I hope is going to be part of an album. We have a Breaking Benjamin album coming. If you like, you can go check out some of my music. I'll be releasing an EP of some of my covers later this week. Feel free to stick around. Let me know what I should check out next. I'm always looking for new artists. But more than anything, enjoy music. Remember that all art is good. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.